Made it in 2015 and 2016, so he's a three-time FCBL All-Star.
All right. What do you guys think about the home run derby so far this year?
I don't like how it's gonna playoffs as of right now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Friday. Welcome to the 2017 Futures Collegiate Baseball League Selection Show. I'm joined here by Peter Nakos and Josh Cummins. We are very happy to have you guys tune in with us live here today. We owe a very special thank you to Nashua Community Television for allowing us to use their great facility. We are very excited. First things first, this year's All-Star Game is being hosted by the Bristol Blues down at Muzzy Field next Tuesday, July 18th. The All-Star Game is set to kick off at 7:15 p.m. with the Home Run Derby shortly prior at 6:20. Before we get into the season, we just want to talk about the Team USA and Team Japan series that has been making the circuit throughout the Futures League. Tonight, Team USA and Team Japan will be playing at 7 p.m. in Brockton. On Sunday, Team USA and Team Japan will be playing in Worcester at 5 p.m. And on Monday, the final game of the series will be played in Nashua at 7 p.m. Mother Nature hasn't been too kind to the Futures League this year, but we are still have gotten most of our games in. Here are the standings. First for the West. Wachusett is in first place with a 19-13 record with 38 points. Pittsfield is in second place at 18 wins and 16 losses with 37 points. The Bristol Blues are in third place with a 17-16 record and 34 points. The Worcester Bravehearts are in fourth place with a 15-18 record and 31 points. For the East Division, the Brockton Rocks lead the way at 19-14 and 38 points. The Nashua Silver Knights are in second place with a 17-18 record and 34 points. Right behind Nashua are the Martha's Vineyard Sharks. They are 16-18 with 33 points. The North Shore Navigators are 14-18 with 29 points, and the Seacoast Mavericks are 14-18 with 28 points. Now we're going to get into our All-Stars. First, for the East outfield, Joe Silva from Concordia University in Chicago, currently batting .333 with 26 hits. Next up is Zach Smith from the Pittsfield Suns. Zach is at Salve Regina and is batting .326 with 28 hits on the season. Up next from the Martha's Vineyard Sharks is Troy Stefanski from the University of Connecticut. He is batting .314 with 32 hits. Next up from the Brockton Rocks is Aldrich DeJong from Florida Atlantic University. He's batting .316 with 31 hits. Now that is it for the East Division outfield. I'm now going to kick it to Pete Nakos, and he's going to break down the outfield.
Thanks, Ronnie. So if you just take a look at the East Division outfield, you notice the names from Brockton, as that's Aldrich DeJong, and he's just been tearing it up so far. He has, like you said, 31 hits, but he also has 3 home runs and 13 RBIs. And then you look at Joe Silva on the Vineyard, Silva with a .470 on base percentage, which leads the league. And then Stefanski and Smith. Smith doing work in the West Division, but he moves over to the East Division for this All-Star game. And he helped Pittsfield out to that 8-0 start, and now they're just trying to piece it back together now after what seemed to be a little slip and slide there in the middle part of the first half. And then Troy Stefanski with the Vineyard, battling it out with Nashua in the East Division.
Thanks, Pete. Next up is the West Division outfielders. First, from the Worcester Bravehearts, we have Joe Keiko. Joe goes to the University of New Haven, and he is batting .310 on the season with 31 RBIs. Up next from the Bristol Blues is Ben Maycock. Ben is at the University of Connecticut and is batting .310 this season with 27 runs batted in. Up next, also from the Worcester Bravehearts, is Trevor Johnson. Trevor goes to Dartmouth, and his batting average is .307 with 31 hits so far this season. From the Pittsfield Suns, we have Andre Marrero from Quinnipiac. He's batting .270 with 22 runs batted in. Next up, from the Bristol Blues, we have Chris Davis from Princeton, batting .277 so far on the season with 31 hits. Now I'm going to kick it over to Josh Cummins as he's going to break down the West Division outfield.
I think in the West outfield, the headline here is Joe Keiko. Obviously, he's in his third year in the league. He's one of the leading home run hitters in the league with 9 this season, second in the league with 31 RBI. He's really been a guy who has played in Worcester for 3 years. He was on their first championship team, and really a guy that team has built around. Trevor Johnson as well, another Braveheart in the outfield, and then 2 hometown guys. It'll be nice to see in Bristol a couple guys from the Blues on the team.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Next up, we have the East Infield. First up from the Nashua Silver Knights is Cam Cook from Nichols College. You look at the numbers, he's having a great season so far, batting .393 with 48 hits. Up next, also from the Nashua Silver Knights, is Ryan Sullivan. Ryan goes to Southern New Hampshire University, is batting .313 on the season with 31 hits. Next up, from the Brockton Rocks, we have Kyle Simon from Palm Beach Atlantic. He's batting .356 this season with 37 hits. Up next for the East Infield is Ted Williams. You may recognize that name. Ted does wear number 1 instead of number 9. Ted goes to Millersville University. He's hitting .341 on the season with 43 hits. Next up, from the North Shore Navigators is Joey Pena from St. Thomas Aquinas. He's batting .288 on the season with 23 hits. Next up, also from North Shore Navigators, is Tyler Kapuscinski from Marist. He's batting .358 on the season with 39 hits. Next up, from the Martha's Vineyard Sharks, Jack Roberts. Jack goes to Williams College. He's batting .330 on the season with 33 hits. Next up, also from the Martha's Vineyard Sharks, is Luke Johnson. Luke goes to Bucknell, is batting .287 on the season, and has 27 hits. I'm going to go over to Pete as he's going to break down the East Division infield.
So when you look at the East Division infield, the big story there is Nashua, and it's because Nashua only has 3 All-Stars in this All-Star selection show, but they all come from the infield, and Ted Williams, Ryan Sullivan, and Cam Cook. Cook leading the league with a batting average, of .393, and he also has 48 hits. Both lead the league in batting average and hits, and then Ryan Sullivan, the 3-time All-Star, the mayor of Nashua, if you want to say so yourself, as Josh can talk about in his article. And Sullivan, just the centerpiece of that Nashua team that's trying to get right back into the mix. And then Ted Williams, the newbie, the new kid on the block, if you want to say so, for Nashua. And he's been a solid fill-in for Cam DiSarcina from last year's team. And then you look through the rest of the list. You see Joey Pena and North Shore, and Pena goes to the College World Series this past spring with St. Thomas, and he picks up right where he left off after that temp in the Cape. And then he comes here. And then just some other names, Kyle Simon from Brockton with a .356 on-base percentage, which is 4th in the league. And then Tyler Kapuscinski, like I said, from North Shore. He's an on-base percentage of .454. North Shore is a team to watch as the season keeps on going on, and Pena and Kapuscinski will help North Shore get there.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. Next up, we have the West Division infield. First up, from the Wachusett Dirt Dogs, we have Zach Tower. Zach goes to Franklin Pierce and is batting .330 on the season with 23 runs batted in. Also from the Wachusett Dirt Dogs, Jack Gethings. Jack goes to Fairfield University. He's batting .339 on the season with 37 hits. Next up, from the Pittsfield Suns, we have Kevin Donati from SUNY Albany. He's batting .375 on the season with 39 hits. Next up, from the host team, the Bristol Blues, we have Jake Frasca from Sacred Heart University. He's batting .252 on the season with 27 hits. Next up, from the Worcester Bravehearts, we have Greg Kaczynski from Marist College. So far this year, he's batting .336 with 36 hits. Also from the Worcester Bravehearts, we have Kevin Duty from the University of Maine. He's sporting a very nice .418 batting average with 33 hits. Next, we have a player from the East Division who is making the switch to the West Division for the All-Star game, just to even out the rosters. We have Chris Berry from the Brockton Rocks. Chris goes to the University of North Florida. He's batting .317 on the season with 33 hits. Next up, from the Pittsfield Suns, we have Sean Phelan. Sean goes to the University of Pennsylvania and is batting .311 on the season with 28 hits. So now I'm going to head over to Josh here as he's going to break down the West Division infield.
Right at the top, Zach Tower, another veteran guy of the league. He's played for 3 different teams this year in Wachusett, which has 8 All-Stars, a very impressive number for a team that's done pretty great things this season. Gethings as well was impressive in the Team USA Futures League game on Monday night in Worcester, along with some of the other guys that we've been talking about on the show here. Kevin Donati is an interesting guy from Pittsfield, very great player who has batted the leadoff position for Pittsfield this year. Frasca, another one of the hometown Bristol guys, actually transferred from Suffolk University Division III school, which is a pretty interesting story. He's been a great player in the league this year. Kaczynski and Duty, 2 of the Bravehearts players. They have 8 All-Stars. Even though they're struggling a little bit record-wise, I think they're going to be a team at the end of the season that you'll want to watch as they have won, obviously, 2 league championships.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Next up, we have the catchers from the East squad. First up, from the Martha's Vineyard Sharks, we have Philip Clark. Philip Clark's going to be a freshman at Vanderbilt this coming fall. He's batting .330 on the season with 32 hits. Next up, from the Brockton Rocks, we have Nick Garland from Central Connecticut. He is batting .330 on the season with 32 hits. Next up, from the Seacoast Mavericks, we have Michael Goodrich from Trinity University. He's batting .310 on the season with 26 hits. Now I will have my pal Pete break down the East Division catchers.
Thanks, Ronnie. So when you look at the East Division catchers, Philip Clark, a big name there, and the fact that one of the big headlines of the Futures League this year is that there are a lot of rising freshmen in the league, but they're all good rising freshmen. And that's starting to come together this season, and you see that in Philip Clark, as Clark boasts a .333 batting average and 3 home runs with 21 runs batted in. So he's helping the Vineyard out there, and he's only going to be a freshman at Vanderbilt. And then you go through the list a little more. Michael Goodrich from Seacoast with that .310 batting average and 12 RBIs. And Seacoast still staying alive in the East Division, and he's one of the reasons why. And then you look at Nick Garland in Brockton, and Garland had a home run, against Nashua earlier this season. He has the power to hit the ball out of the ballpark, and he's a big reason why Brockton is sitting atop the East Division.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Next up, we have the West Division catchers. From the Pittsfield Suns, we have Kyle Ballou from the University of Rhode Island. So far this season, he's batting .320 with 16 hits. Next up, from the West Division leaders, the Wachusett Dirt Dogs, we have Andrew Bene. Andrew goes to Shippensburg, is batting .306 on the season with 19 hits. Next up, we have another guy who is making the switch from the East to the West just for the All-Star game. From the Brockton Rocks, we have Ricky Smith. Ricky goes to Merrimack College. So far this year, he is batting .311, and he has 28 hits. And that is it for the West Division catchers, and now we'll head over to Josh so he can break those down.
Thanks, Ronnie. Yeah, 2 of the catchers have only played in, actually all 3 of them haven't played in as many games, just 17 or 18 games for the 3 guys, but 2 of them have batting averages over 300, as Ronnie was talking about. Ballou leads that group with a .320 average. He's driven in 7 runs, and for a team that I know Pete was talking about, Pittsfield, their great start has helped them come back a little bit here in the middle of the season. Bene, again, is one of the best defensive catchers in the league. He's caught 9 runners stealing, which is the top mark, and only played in 17 games but has a .306 batting average. Smith is a veteran of the league. This is his 2nd year. He played for North Shore 2 years ago, hitting .278, and also another guy who's very responsible defensively.
Good stuff. Thanks, Josh. Next up, we're going to go through the pitchers. Both rosters do have a lot of pitchers. as needed for an all-star game. First up from the Brockton Rocks, we have Zach Martin from Notre Dame. He's sporting a very nice 1.7 ERA with 41 strikeouts. I've had the chance to watch him pitch a couple times, and he's certainly a very impressive player. Next up, also from the Brockton Rocks, we have Mason Palmieri. Mason goes to Bryant. He has a 1.28 earned run average with 27 strikeouts. Next up from the North Shore Navigators, we have Austin Michelle from Dartmouth. He's got a 1.6 ERA with 35 punch-outs. Next up from the Seacoast Mavericks, we have Logan Doobie. Logan goes to Washington College, also with a very nice 1.70 ERA with 41 strikeouts. Next up from the Brockton Rocks, we have Mike McCaffrey. Mike goes to Wesleyan University. He has a 1.58 ERA with 30 strikeouts so far this year for the Rocks. Next up, also from the Brockton Rocks, is David Griffin. David goes to Curry College, has a 2.54 ERA with 28 strikeouts. Next up from the North Shore Navigators, we have Henry Finaro. Henry pitches at UMass Lowell, has a 1.28 ERA, and is 4-0 so far on the season. Next up, also from the North Shore Navigators, is Chris Pinnell from St. Thomas Aquinas. He has a 2.07 earned run average with 22 strikeouts. Next up from the Martha's Vineyard Sharks, we have David Bates. David is a Vanderbilt guy. He has a 1.8 ERA with 35 strikeouts. Next up, also from the Martha's Vineyard Sharks, is Hunter Shepard. Hunter goes to Catawba, has a 3.14 earned run average, and 28 strikeouts so far on the season. And that does it for our East Division pitchers. We're going to see what Pete has to say about each of these guys.
So like you mentioned, a whole lot of pitchers that you need to get through an all-star game. And at a first glance, you look at Zach Martin and Logan Doobie, both with 41 strikeouts, both lead the league in strikeouts. So Josh might chime in on this, but the East Division has the strikeout guys and pitchers. And that, you can see that there with Zach Martin and Logan Doobie. And then you just run through the rest of the list. Austin Michelle having a great season. Already pitched 33.2 innings. Only he's allowed 6 earned runs and a 1.6 ERA with 35 strikeouts. So that's a nice stat line for Michelle there. And then a lot of North Shore guys. The Henry Finaro from UMass Lowell just graduated from Lowell High, so he's obviously off to a great start. And then some other names there: David Griffin from Curry College, 17.2 innings pitched, and you mentioned he has 28 punch-outs already, and a lot of good names in that East Division pitchers list. And then just to top it off, you have Mason Palmieri, the redshirt sophomore from Bryant, teammates with Justin Snyder on Nashua, and he's 3-1 on the season with 28 innings pitched and 27 strikeouts. So a strong set of arms for the East Division in this year's All-Star game.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pete. Next up, we have the West Division pitchers. First, from the Worcester Bravehearts, we have Billy DeVito. Billy pitches at the University of Hartford, has a 1.17 ERA with 35 strikeouts so far this year. Next up, also from the Worcester Bravehearts, we have Frank Moscatello. This is the third St. Thomas Aquinas guy that has been an all-star so far in this selection show. So far this year, he has a sub-1 ERA at .87 with 3 saves for the Bravehearts. Next up, from the host Bristol Blues, we have Tommy Curtin. Tommy pitches at Central Connecticut, has a 1.74 ERA, and has 9 saves. Next up, from the Wachusett Dirt Dogs, we have Joe Simeone. Joe pitches at the University of Connecticut, also has a sub-1 ERA at .79. He also has 6 saves on his stat line as well. Next up, from the Wachusett Dirt Dogs, we have Mike Demarest. Mike pitches at Adelphi. He has a 1.08 earned run average with 25 strikeouts so far this season. Also from the Wachusett Dirt Dogs, we have Jonathan Gagetskas. Jonathan pitches at Westfield State. He's got a 3.16 earned run average and 36 strikeouts so far this year. Next up, from the Worcester Bravehearts, we have Cody Larson from the University of Maine. He's got a 2.84 ERA with 33 strikeouts. Next up from the Worcester Bravehearts, is Brian Auerbach. Brian pitches at Rollins College down in Florida. He's got a 2.45 ERA with 31 strikeouts. Next up, we have Jake Wallace, no relation to myself. He pitches at University of Connecticut with a 2.87 earned run average and 17 strikeouts. Next up, from the Wachusett Dirt Dogs, we have Eddie Santiago. Eddie pitches at Mitchell College. He's got a 2.13 earned run average and 23 strikeouts so far this season for the Dirt Dogs. That does it for the West Division pitchers. What do you got, Josh?
Yeah, again, a lot of representation from Worcester and Wachusett, two teams at sort of different points as far as the record, but it will be interesting to watch down the stretch. DeVito and Moscatello were both in the prospects game for the Futures League against Team USA, and were running it up there pretty good in their home park on Monday night. As Ronnie was talking about with the number of saves, a lot of closers in this group, an interesting mix between the starters and the pitchers, so it'll be interesting to see how that happens in the All-Star game where people are placed. But guys with a lot of saves, Wallace, it'll be interesting to see again, hometown guys, and that's an interesting pitching staff.
Awesome. One thing I want to touch on about the pitchers, I've been the general manager up in Nashua for 5 years now, and I think one thing as we go each season is the number of power arms that we're seeing in this league now. On a regular basis, we're seeing 90 plus from these guys, and guys like Zach Martin, we're seeing arms run up to 95 miles an hour. So I think that's something to keep an eye on as the league continues to progress and grow, as it's continued to do so over the first 7 years of the league. Next up, we have the managers for the All-Star games. For the West Division, so the managers for the All-Star games are the teams who are leading each division heading into play today. So for the West, we have Dan Gennarelli from the Wachusett Dirt Dogs. And from the East, we have first-year manager Tad Skelly from the Brockton Rocks. Up next, we have our Home Run Derby participants. First up, we have Zach Tower. Zach is certainly not one to lack power. Earlier this year, in one of our extra inning home run derbies, he hit 17 home runs in his round out in Pittsfield, which is obviously an incredibly impressive number. Next up, we have Don Walsh, also from the Wachusett Dirt Dogs. Next up, we have a hometown boy for the Home Run Derby. We have Ben Maycock of the Bristol Blues. Next, we have Alex Brickman from the North Shore Navigators. And finally, our fifth and final Home Run Derby participant is Joe Keiko from the Worcester Bravehearts. The Home Run Derby is brought to you by Blast Motion. Our players during batting practice and some during the games this year have been wearing the Blast Motion sensors on their bats, which is able to detect and kind of analyze their swing path, their swing speed. Just technology is getting so much greater these days. Some of our players really want to have those analytics to better themselves. So thank you, Blast Motion, for what you've done so far for us this year. Last up here is we have our fan vote. The fan vote will kick off today at 2 p.m. and it will end Monday morning at 10 a.m. So be sure to check out the Futures League website along with all of the team's social media platforms, as that is where you will find out how to vote right there. So each team has one person in the fan vote. And for the East Division, Martha's Vineyard's representative for the fan vote is Jack Zagaja from the University of New Haven. So far this year, he's batting .329 with 6 extra base hits, 2 home runs, 18 RBIs, and 11 walks. Next up from Seacoast is Luke Dawson. Luke plays at Bentley. He is 4-1 on the mound for Seacoast this year with a 3.37 earned run average in 40 innings pitched with 40 strikeouts. Next up from the Nashua Silver Knights, we have Jason Jondro from the University of Hartford. He's got a 4.86 ERA. He has pitched in 16.2 innings with 18 strikeouts. He's another one of those power arms that we're talking about. We had him up to 94 last week up in Nashua. So next up from the North Shore Navigators, we have Alex Brickman. Alex will be participating in the Home Run Derby. He goes to St. Petersburg Junior College. So far this year, he's batting .299 with 14 extra base hits, 7 home runs, 32 runs batted in, and 32 hits. The last fan vote selection for the East Division from the Brockton Rocks is Matt Fogarty from Curry College. So far this year, he is 1-0 with a 3.5 ERA. He has pitched 25.2 innings and has 18 strikeouts. And for the West Division, from the Wachusett Dirt Dogs, we have Kyle Kayla from Wagner College. So far this year, he is batting .294 with 7 extra base hits, 3 home runs, 18 RBIs, 10 walks, and 2 stolen bases. For the Pittsfield Suns, we have Austin Pope from Fairfield University. So far on the hill for Pittsfield this year, he is 2-1 with a 3.42 ERA, 23.2 innings pitched with 23 strikeouts. For the Worcester Bravehearts, we have John Friday from Franklin Pierce. He is batting .252 on the season with 4 doubles, 16 RBIs, 30 hits, and 8 walks. To round things out here for our fan vote, we have from the Bristol Blues, Mitch Gilmet from Central Connecticut State University. He's batting .356 with 16 hits, 7 RBIs, and 13 walks on the season. So that does it for our selection show here for the Futures Collegiate Baseball League 2017 All-Star Game. Again, the All-Star Game is in Bristol, Connecticut at historic Muzzy Field this coming Tuesday, July 18th. The game kicks off at 7:15 p.m. Home Run Derby starts at 6:20 p.m. You won't want to miss that. And we owe one last special thanks to Nashua Community TV for allowing us to use their great facility. This is a really nice production that they've set up for us this year. And as we head out here after the All-Star break, definitely keep an eye on these standings. As I said before, if you look through, no one has been counted out yet. No one has a spot locked in. Anyone can be in first place. Anyone can be in last place. It's certainly going to make for a very interesting post-All-Star game. So once again, I'm Ronnie Wallace, joined by Peter Nakos and Josh Cummins. We appreciate you tuning in for our live stream, and we hope to see you guys down in Bristol next Tuesday. If not, we hope to see you out in the ballparks the rest of this summer. Thank you.